Well, good afternoon to you. It's 3:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Obviously, coming up, Hung Cao is with us, running for Senate in Virginia, and it's the first day of early voting in the Commonwealth. We'll share the good man, the good Navy veteran with you at 3:30. At 4 o'clock, Mary Catherine Ham is here. We talked to her about Kamala Harris's empty-headed Oprah event last night. All the celebrities were brought out. They're bringing out actors to pretend that people are excited for Kamala Harris. We need the actors. Bring them. And then Derek Anderson is joining us, Republican nominee in Virginia's 7th Congressional District, former Green Beret. We'll talk to him. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Wow, that was a great turnout this morning at the Fairfax County Government Center. As early voting began there, 8 o'clock this morning, I was running around. Corey, of course, the producer of this fine program, and myself, we were gathering the necessary supplies to arrive at the polls this morning. Corey grabbed the work truck, so we had a big WMAL vehicle out there, and I ran and got the donuts and the coffee. And I have no way. You can ask my wife. I'm awful at estimating the amounts that I will need in order to supply an event. So I'm usually not in charge of this responsibility. Not in my house anyway. My wife comes up with how much food to get, how many drinks to get. So I got a couple of boxes of coffee, and I think that went the distance, those boxes. The donuts were gone lickety-split. I brought 3 dozen donuts. I was like, how many people could show up? We'll see. 3 dozen. They were ransacked. I think Antifa got to us. There was a mob that attacked the donuts at the Fairfax County Government Center this morning. People were showing up bright and early. Corey and I arrived, goodies in hand, at around 7 o'clock, an hour or so before the polls began opening. And we settled in, and it was a cool sight because when we were arriving, first of all, just in the car, you're driving into that Fairfax County Government Center, and the roads are covered in, well, the perimeters, of course, in the grass, are covered in Trump signs. Trump signs everywhere. Everywhere. And I looked around, and I said to myself, are you in Fairfax County, Virginia? Why are there Trump signs everywhere? This is kind of amazing. What am I dealing with here? And I drive into the polling location, and we park the cars and start bringing everything over. And right there in front of the doors, a legal distance, by the way, in front of the doors, you see the Republican Party, the Fairfax County Republican Party is set up there. And right behind them, they have covered every last inch of grass along the little retaining wall with Trump, 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 Cow, Van Meter, Trump, 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 Trump. Just like, some of the other signs, but lots of Trump signs. Just Trump signs everywhere, everywhere. And then you look over across it where the Democrats are not even yet set up. The Republicans were set up hours ago, I guess. They had set up way in advance. They had actually done the planning. The Democrats were definitely sleeping in this morning because they were limping in and yawning. I saw one guy sort of lazily trying to put up his table in his tent. But when he arrived, it's so funny. The Republicans had put so many Trump signs out, he had nowhere to put a Harris Wall sign. There's practically nowhere to stick a sign in the ground. There were Trump signs all around the spot where the Democrats were setting up this morning. And the Democrats, and they look bewildered. You should have seen the looks on these guys' faces. They're looking around going, we're going to make people come over here? There's Trump signs everywhere. What are we going to do here? Tent goes up, little table goes up. They've got their COVID masks on, and they settle in, hoping someone's going to stop by their table. And of course, people do. It's Fairfax County. There's some people who finally do. But the energy was off the charts this morning. The energy was just so good. So many great patriots showing up this morning. So many people there to support President Trump and all these Republican candidates up and down the ballot. Democrats had nothing like it. And in fact, some of the local news outlets, not just local, national news outlets, were covering the activity at the Fairfax County Government Center this morning. I saw ABC7 had a chopper in the air and taking footage, and you can see really clearly in their footage from the helicopter all of the Trump people who were out there this morning at the polls, all of the Trump flags, people waving them, talking to people in line, celebrating Trump. And then the helicopter also has images of the Democrat table, and it's crickets. There's like nobody there. Nobody there. And then MSNBC, they even sent somebody out this morning, and they were trying to get, a perspective on the ground. They probably figured that this would be a layup. This is just Fairfax County. We'll just get a bunch of Democrats. Joy for Kamala. Excited for Kamala. Instead, they got a lot of chanting for Donald Trump.
Locations in Fairfax County alone, they're going to open another 13 of these locations in the beginning of October. So they expect a lot of people to vote.
Yeah, Trump, says a guy in line right behind him. That NBC shot that they set up, they got as far away, I think, as they could from the Republican tent where so much of the action was. But even there, you had people standing in line chanting, Trump, Trump, Trump. It was cool. It was cool to see this morning. In fact, let me put Corey and Ganamort on the air here. Corey, what were your general feelings on all of this as you arrive? This is Fairfax County, and what kind of energy were you picking up?
Yeah, I want to echo exactly what you said. When I was arriving, it was a little quiet. I wasn't really sure. You show up, and then boom, out of nowhere, the energy, the people there. When we got there, showed up to the front door, 7:15, 7:20, there were already probably 50 Trump supporters just waving flags, signs, and that number kept growing and growing and growing. And the energy there was just palpable.
The line was long. When we got there, well before they had even opened at 8 a.m., the line was long, and they filtered people in. And it's not a short walk. Corey's not a Fairfax County guy. I am. So I ended up going into the polls later in the morning. I literally spent hours out there, and then finally was able to get into the polls, and then I had to get back to prepare for the show. But Corey, when I went in, I realized it's a long walk to the actual voting location inside of that very big building. By the way, that's kind of a nice building. How much did we pay for that, Fairfax County residents? That's a huge building. Anyway, so they emptied the entire line of people who were outside into the building even before the polls opened just to get them ready. And then as soon as that happened, boom, the lines filled up all the way across the street in front of the building as well. So a nonstop flow of people. And but it was on average, I would say, somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes to wait just to get in to vote in what was a pretty efficient system, actually.
Yeah, it was great to see. And, the Democrats, they're always known to be the organized party. The Republicans kind of, they don't have the ground game. At least that's what the narrative is. But the GOP, Fairfax GOP, just did an excellent job organizing everybody. Those votes are now banked. You won't be receiving emails, won't be receiving text messages anymore. And I think it was Ned Ryan said the campaign saves $10 per person for everyone who votes early.
I believe it.
So that is a big deal. If you consider how many millions of voters there are out there, $10 a person, bank those votes as early as you possibly can.
So, one of the differences here, and you're totally right about that, and it's a great way. I think it's like a way that, like, if people, even if you don't donate to political campaigns, you can help them financially by removing your name this early from the available voter lists. Nope, that Corey's not available anymore. Corey, let's not send any more ads to Corey. Let's not send more material to Corey.
We all basically just donated $10 to the Trump campaign this morning just by voting. Get it done. Get it over with.
There you go. So one of the things that one of the conversations I was having with the many Republicans who were showing up this morning, many great WMAL listeners, so many wonderful people, and it was, God bless all of you. It was so nice to meet everybody. So it's nice to put a face to so many of the names. We get a lot of calls, and people were coming up. We were recognizing all of the people who call into the show. And one of the things that came up, though, is normally on Election Day, I don't know about if this is normally this way for you, Corey, because you lead a very fantastic and belligerent lifestyle. But I usually Election Day for me is like a trip to the DMV. I'm not really looking forward to like a social event. I'm there to just get my vote in and then get out. You know what I mean? I just stand in line, pull the levers, leave. That's always been my posture towards voting. I've got to do it. Let's go do it right now. That was not what it was this morning. And in fact, all these Republicans, people are showing up. It was a party. Let me just put it that way. It was like an event.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I would say I probably take the other side of things. I kind of look for confrontation when I go to polling booths. I'm going to be volunteering in Arlington at the courthouse this next couple of weekends, Clarendon Day in Arlington next weekend, manning the GOP booth. I can't wait for the confrontation because Unfortunately, a lot of these people you can't convince to come to your side. They've made their decision. They are in blue Arlington. So the other thing that I rely on, these people should not be convinced. They should be mocked, destroyed, and beaten. And that is my perspective on these long-lost left-wing activists that are in Arlington, Virginia, because to me, you need to shame them into the ideas that they should be shamed for thinking that a man could become a woman and then children should be mutilated in the name of gender-affirming care. There's no getting them to your side. They need to be mocked and destroyed. So I'm actually looking forward to that over the next couple of weekends. And I welcome the confrontation, but Vince, I just
they're
also
going to kick you out. The party's going to be like, hey, thanks, Corey. We really don't need you handing out sample ballots anymore. Your service has been enough.
That's the one risk. I might rile them up to drive more voters out, but they themselves rile me up to drive myself. Like I've said this on air before. Like, yes, obviously the economy, the border, wars, they're all very, very important. But just as important to me is that my neighbors lose. My neighbors must lose. I don't want to see them in the elevator the next day holding my head down. I need them to lose. So we did our part this morning. And Vince, I just want to echo what you said. It was so nice meeting so many listeners this morning. I met Sam in Alexandria. I talked to him for years on the phone. It was so great to meet you, Sam, Hoke and Round Hill.
Yeah, everyone's got a personal relationship with Corey. Corey's like constantly talking to everybody.
I feel like I know these guys, but I was like, wait, Hoke, that's what you look like? Oh, you're better looking in person than I realized. You know,
look at that. What
couldn't tell over the phone.
That's funny. I love it. It was really great. Now, one of the things I would say, and some people may be thinking as they listen to all this, well, look, this is anecdotal. This is one event. This is we talked about it this week. We were trying to get people out there, and answer they did. So many great WMAL listeners were out there. There's some data today that's kind of encouraging. I would say, not more than kind of. It seems like a big deal. The University of Mary Washington has a poll out today that assesses the state of the Virginia race. And for a few weeks, it looked like the Virginia race was not quite as close as it had been earlier this year. When Joe Biden was still on the ballot against President Trump, it had gotten as close, I think, as around 3 points, the difference between the two of them. But with Kamala Harris jumping in on the switcheroo, it had begun to drift away from that. Virginia started looking a little bit more distant and a lot more challenging for President Trump. Today, we get an update on this as the University of Mary Washington now finds that 47% of likely voters in Virginia support Harris. 46% support Trump. 46%. This is a survey done between September 3rd and September 9th, which means that there's some big news events since then that are not included in the data, including this recent assassination attempt on President Trump. But that's a big deal. In a question that asks likely voters only about the major party nominees, it's 48% Harris, 46% Trump. So that's a 2-point difference when you're only asking about the two of them and not the other third-party candidates. A couple things to think about here. One of them is that RFK is no longer on the ballot. RFK is not on this ballot, not on the ballot that I voted on today, not on the ballot that Corey voted on today. Corey went back to Arlington to vote. I want to ask you about that too. But RFK not on that ballot. Now, I will say I have no idea what role we may have played in this, but I've talked to Corey about this. We were really interested in the answer to that question. RFK was jumping out of the race, and he said he was going to jump off the ballot in a lot of the competitive states. And I got to say, maybe more than any other radio show that exists, we were pounding on the drum. Is RFK getting off the Virginia ballot? Are you getting off? Does RFK realize that Virginia is competitive? And you heard me read those University of Mary Washington numbers. It is competitive. Not having RFK on the ballot seems like a big deal. Seems like a big deal and is going to be some help to President Trump given all of the available data on that subject. So I'd like to think that we played at least a small part in finally getting a yes out of the RFK campaign, what's left of it. And then they made that filing, got off the ballot, and here we are today with some very encouraging numbers, don't you think, Corey, for the Trump campaign?
Absolutely. It is essentially a tie right now. It's a complete toss-up because these numbers are within the margin of error. In this poll, the margin of error is 3.7%. That could obviously go either way, but it's a toss-up. And when you expand to the full field, Kamala Harris is only up 47% to 46%, the full field.
Yeah.
So it is a toss-up, and bank those votes, and we have a real shot. We have a real shot in Virginia.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. More on those poll numbers in just a moment. I want to share with you some of the details on the Senate race in Virginia. Lots of conversation about how neck and neck the presidential race is. That Senate race turns out maybe a little bit closer than most people have given it credit for. And we'll talk to retired Navy combat veteran Hung Cao about all of this coming up. Yeah, the University of Mary Washington polling looks really good for Hung Cao as well, who's going to be on the program here in just a few minutes. It now says that Hung Cao is 6 points back on Tim Kaine. Tim Kaine, 49% support. Hung Cao, 43% support. We have a very real race here. That's a real Senate race in Virginia. And that has been Hung Cao's trajectory, by the way. With each successive poll, he's getting closer and closer to Tim Kaine. That's good news. We'll keep tracking that. Let's get Pam and Burke in here on line one. Hello, Pam. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, how are you, Chris? I'm sorry. Sorry, Vince. I was looking at my things.
That's right. Well, let's take it from the top, all right? I'll start over and you start over. Ready? Here we go. Okay. Hey, Pam, you're on line one. Good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Thanks, Vince. It's good to talk to you. My apologies. It was an awfully early morning out there at the Fairfax County Government Center, so
Sure.
Sorry about that.
All good. What did you think of it?
It was an absolute party.
Yeah. It was. Have you ever seen anything like that?
No. I've worked the polls. I've worked out there, handing out ballot sheets for ever since 2016, and I've never seen a crowd like that. You and Corey were pretty inundated. I didn't stop to say hi. I grabbed a donut and got in line because the line was long.
Oh, it was you.
And
it was you. You were one. You grabbed the donut.
It was. I was one of the last. I got one of the last curlers.
That's cool.
But I felt like there was a lot of pearl clutching this morning with the people that were watching all of the fun that we were having on our side, and the Democratic blue tent. There was like three people, and there was a lot of clutching of the pearls.
That's true. It felt like they were seething through their COVID masks. They were shaking with rage.
Absolutely.
Pam, thank you very much. I'm so glad you got a donut and got to vote this morning. Thank you, Pam. All right, hold on. Coming up, Hung Cao joins the program just moments away. Welcome back to the Vince Coglianese Show. As you know, today is the first day of early voting in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and who better to discuss it than the man who is running for Senate in that great state. Hung Cao is a retired Navy combat veteran and the Republican nominee for the U.S. Senate, running against the awful Tim Kaine. Hung Cao joins us on the phone. Hung, great to have you with us, sir.
Vince, it's always great to be on your show.
Thank you very much. I've been talking about this, but I was out this morning at the Fairfax County Government Center, and I can't help but notice that there was a lot of energy for the Republicans and not so much for the Democrats. What is your sense of this election as we begin the first day of early voting?
Well, we've looked at even the absentee ballots. Their numbers are down drastically from not just 2022, but also from 2020. So it's a significant change in requests for absentee ballots from the Democrat side. But we've ran a couple of polls, and then one just came out from Mary Washington University and has me at 6 points, which is actually better than Governor Youngkin was 3 years ago today. And look at him; he's now one of the most popular governors in the country. And so this is exciting for us, and we are closing on Tim Kaine. In a month, we've closed by 50% of the gap.
Wow, this is a very real race. How much of a difference maker is it for you as a candidate when people vote early? Does that matter to you?
Well, I mean, everything happens. Anything can happen on election day. You get a flat tire, your kids get sick. So I encourage everybody to go out there and vote. Vote early, and then on election day, grab your neighbors, grab your friends, grab your families who forgot it's election day, and go out there and vote. Because look, Arlington National Cemetery is lined up with 400,000 tombstones of men and women who gave their lives for our right to vote, and we need to fulfill our civic duty to do so.
For sure. But the effect of this is also to save your campaign a lot of money, isn't it? If somebody goes and they vote now, that means that's one fewer person that you have to spend time trying to target and send all sorts of mail to and try and get them out to vote, right?
No, you're absolutely right. Every mailer that you get in your box is about $1 each. And yes, you're right. Every dollar is going to count, especially when we have 6 million different voters. I mean, there's 9 million people in Virginia, but about 6 million voters. We have to reach out to every single person. And yes, it does save us a lot of money if you already voted, because then we can concentrate on the people who've not gotten out to vote.
Yeah. So where are you concentrating your efforts in the state? If you could give me a map of like what your strategy is throughout the state, what are your thoughts right now?
But I've been all over the Commonwealth of Virginia. I mean, we've been to Southwest Virginia, we've been to Richmond, we've been to Hampton Roads, Northern Virginia, and Northern Virginia knows me. I mean, I ran for Congress in 2022, and I closed that gap where Joe Biden won by 19%. I took it down to 6%. And, you know, if Northern Virginia turns out and flips it the way they did last time, you know, if we close the gap that way and the South comes out for us, we've already won this race. And we're seeing this in our modeling. We see this in the polls. We know there's a path to victory, and we're just excited.
Yeah, in Northern Virginia, you and I have discussed before, it is really important. So much of Virginia you look at and is pretty reliably Republican, but in a statewide race, this is really important that people show up. You need the bodies. It can't just be that more Republicans vote in the district. You need a lot of people just showing up and voting. Northern Virginia plays a huge role in this, Hung Cao, because if you get a sizable Republican turnout in Northern Virginia, that often determines whether or not the Democrat gets defeated, quite honestly.
No, you're absolutely right. Virginia is one of those weird states there. The more people that turn out, the more red it becomes. And so if you live in Arlington or Alexandria, you're like, oh my gosh, I'll never beat this. You know, it's all blue over there. But no, every single count votes when you're running about a statewide. So remember, in 2021, we won all 3 statewide elections. In 22, even though I lost, Jen Kiggins picked up 1 seat in the House. Yeah. In 23, even though they, you know, gerrymandered and all this stuff, more Republicans showed up than Democrats did. So, you know, and this is a heavy, election year. And the more people that come out, the more we're going to be able to really swamp the vote and get people out there and win this race.
Tell me about Tim Kaine. How's he campaigning right now? And would he dare debate you?
Oh, yes. We are debating on October 2nd down at Norfolk State University, and it's going to be televised. That was one of those stipulations I had to have. Is like, look, I don't want to do in, you know, some back room where you guys get to clip and say what you want, because, you know, we know what happens when they do that. And so I want to be televised, and, you know, we're going to be facing him off in October 2nd. So it's going to be televised throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, and it's going to be, they're going to show it on all the, I believe, the local networks shows, and hopefully on WMAL too.
And what do you expect Tim Kaine to say about his great success as a United States Senator? Is he going to be pointing to just all the economic thriving we have going on all around us?
That's exactly it. I mean, he's going to, you know, just remember the same person who got us into this mess is now saying, hey, give me 6 more years. I'm going to get us out. And I think Virginians are sick and tired of it. And look, I mean, he hasn't really produced anything for Virginia. You look at his voting record, you look at, you know, the Inflation Reduction Act. What has that done for us? I mean, except for 87,000 new IRS hires. You know, we're not doing anything to keep our streets safer. We're not doing anything to boost the economy and to protect our country.
Yeah, I haven't. I mean, the truth is I don't watch a lot of television, but I do feel, so maybe I'm missing it, but I feel like I haven't seen a lot from Tim Kaine. Like, he's trying to keep his head down in this race.
Well, I'll tell you some, a story that people in Stan and Abingdon are like, hey, we haven't seen this guy for 10 years. All of a sudden we see him now, 3 times in the same month. So that tells you that he's getting worried. He knows that he's got a real race on his hands. And except he wrote a memo, I guess, to all the different newspapers, and they're writing the same thing. Hung Cao has no chance. Well, the polls don't lie, and the polls are showing that we're closing in the gap, and he's dropped a lot of money for ads, and so it shows us that he is worried, and he knows that he's got a strong race against him. Yeah, and we can get across the board. We just need for Virginians to get out and vote.
You do have to feel some encouragement from this poll that you're referencing from the University of Mary Washington. showing 49% of likely voters say they favor Tim Kaine. 43% say they favor you, but that does leave some others who really haven't registered an opinion here. In fact, they say the rest are right now undecided, which means you have a real chance here to convince some undecideds to join your race.
No, you're absolutely right. So we ran our own polls, and when we introduced we had kind of the same results, but after we introduced me to the audience, the polls flipped, where I was 47 and he was 42 after we introduced me to the voters. So all it means is I need to get commercials out there. I need to introduce myself to the people of Virginia through commercials and everything else. I mean, Of course, I'm going around the Commonwealth right now with the governor. I'm heading down to Virginia Beach today with him, and tomorrow we'll be in the 7th district. Last week, I think we were in the 5th district. We've been all over with governor, and he's been a great partner in this election.
And do you have any sense of President Trump's return to Virginia, if at all? I know he's already campaigned here, which has been fantastic. I saw you up on that stage with him. But some question of whether or not he will return to the state ahead of the election. He told me a couple months back that he very much thinks Virginia is in play and he wants to win Virginia. Do you expect to see President Trump back in the state at all?
Oh, absolutely. He's told me that several times. He says, Hung, we're going to win Virginia together. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, no, we're going to win it. We're going to take it back. I'm like, all right, Mr. President. So he's definitely determined to win Virginia and come back here. Where he's going to go, I mean, that's up to you and me. But remember, he's already been to Richmond. He's already been to Hampton Roads. He was up here in Northern Virginia with me on August 26th during the 3-year anniversary of the fallen, the 13 fallen.
Yes.
And then we went to Eden Center, and then most likely he'll be back down probably Roanoke area, and then hopefully up in Northern Virginia one more time.
So when you talk to him and your read from the campaign is you get a very sincere belief from them that they take Virginia seriously.
Oh, absolutely. He's determined to win this. And, don't forget one of his campaign managers is a native Virginian also and one of my voters.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. Well, this is going to shape up to be a good race. How are you going to spend all of these early voting days now that we actually have people casting ballots at early voting locations across the state? Do you expect to be at these polling places most days?
No, we're going to get to the voters to get them to come out to vote. We're going to meet them where they go, whether it's the fairs, the stores. We're going to knock on doors. We're going to do everything we can to get the voters out here. Vince, I mean, look, I'm a brand new grandfather, believe it or not.
I love that. And
I haven't seen my kids or my granddaughter that much because I'm out there meeting the voters and getting them to come out and getting them excited about this race, because this is a very winnable race, and we just need for people to turn out. I'm telling you right now, Vince, I mean, I can't tell you how ecstatic I am about these numbers going to come about, both from Mary Washington and our own polls as well, that really solidifies the fact that there is a clear path to victory for us. Yeah,
very, very encouraging news. I love that. If people want more information, they can find out more at Hung's website, very simply, hung4va.com. Hung Cao, best of luck to you, and we'll chat with you again as we get closer and closer to the end of election season. Thank you, Hung.
All right, thank you so much, Vince. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you, sir. In a moment, I want to share some information with you about Joe Biden just holding the first cabinet meeting in almost a year. He brought a special guest with him. The White House isn't even pretending Joe is running the country anymore. More on that in a moment. Michael's calling in from Fairfax now, line 1. Hello, Michael. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, Vince. How you doing today?
I'm doing great.
It's a good day in Fairfax County. People are out voting. Left there about 40 minutes ago. It took me about 45 minutes to get in.
Wow.
The people were lined out across the plaza in front of the government center and across the road and on the other side. And all the way down the hallways. They have a full staff of probably about at least 12 people checking you in once you get into the voting area.
Yes.
Lots of people out front celebrating. I see people filming with their Trump flags and people with the bumper stickers. All races are out voting today. Great turnout, probably the best I've ever seen.
I completely share that sentiment. I felt like it was very energetic this morning. It's good to hear that the wait time is still around 45 minutes to vote, which means the steady stream continues. Lots of people going in.
Oh, yeah. People were coming as I was leaving. It's a constant flow of folks. So very, very successful day.
And what, Michael, as of the last hour or so, what was the split, if you can assess it, between the Republican tent and the Democrat tent just across from them?
Lots of activity over at the Republican tent, handing out bumper stickers, people coming up asking questions, picking up the the sample ballot over there. I saw them in line. I would say it's probably at least 50% with the green ballot for Republicans and 50% with the blue that had them. And then there's, of course, other people that didn't have anything in their hands.
Yes.
But the guy that came up behind me in line, he said this was the first time he was voting for Trump, and he's voting for Trump because RFK Jr. told him to. So
he was an RFK guy before, and RFK says, look, I'm with Trump, and he bought it. He said, me too now.
Yep, that's what he said. He was going to vote for RFK Jr., but he was voting for Trump because RFK told him to get out there and vote for Trump.
Out of curiosity, do you know what made him like RFK over Trump in the first place?
He said he's tired of the two-party system.
Yeah. It's hard to blame him. It's hard to blame him, given what it's yielded through the years. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Michael. That's a good update on what's going on there in Fairfax County. Thank you, sir. All right, that's yes, sir. Thank you, Michael. Okay, let me share some audio with you now. Today, Joe Biden hosts a cabinet meeting for the first time in nearly a year. He brought Dr. Jill with him. Jill Biden sitting at the head of the table today and running at least some portion of the meeting today as the cabinet has to obediently nod and clap while she's speaking. Listen to MSNBC break it down.
Notably, Jill Biden, Dr. Biden, the First Lady, in attendance today as well, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, this is an important and interesting cabinet meeting because of who is not there, which was Vice President Harris, obviously, who has her campaign schedule, but then because of the spotlight that the First Lady did have. She talked about the fact that sometimes the White House, in her words, surprises you. And for somebody who has worked on women's health issues for her whole career, frankly, as a teacher, but also as the Second Lady and now as the First Lady, she said one of the things that struck her the most was the inequities in medical research funding.
It's funny, on the screen as they're explaining this, they're showing footage of the meeting, and the whole cabinet, everybody who should have invoked the 25th Amendment to get rid of her husband, they're all clapping like it's North Korea.
Medical research for women, so this is an important priority of hers that she had the opportunity to at this cabinet meeting to spotlight. And as you had that great interview with her, Peter, talking about the fact that, yes, a burden may have been lifted from her husband's shoulder in one respect with the end of his campaign, but there's still a lot of work that they both intend to do during their last few months in office.
All right, here's the sound. This is Joe Biden introducing his wife as the boss.
Jill is here today. You heard that clapping. It wasn't for me when we came in. Here across previous administration, First Ladies have attended these meetings for specific reasons. This is the first time Jill has joined us, and it goes to show how important.
It's also the first time you've even had one of these meetings in over a year.
She is what she's about to speak to the both of us. Today, at the top of our meeting, Jill's going to give...
And the cabinet room is not that far away. Joe can shuffle right down the hallway in the West Wing to get to it. They just never do.
On the House initiative, White House initiative, to fundamentally change the approach and fund how we approach and fund women's health services. So I'd like to turn it over to Jill and for any comments she has. And it's all yours, kid.
It's all yours, kid, he says. I'm sure the left was very excited about his referring to his wife as a kid. That's fantastic. Way to go. So Jill Biden, I saw today getting around the internet the folders that I believe are used for legislation, used for whenever the president signs legislation, or at least folders at the White House. They have a presidential seal on them, and underneath the presidential seal is Joe Biden's signature, as you might expect, and then right beneath it in gold foil, Jill Biden. Jill Biden's signature falls beneath the presidential seal on the folders at the White House. You know, because she's running the country. Nobody voted for her. They don't care. They don't care at all. Kamala Harris wasn't there. They said the meeting is useless enough. Let's not extend it. Coming up, Mary Catherine Ham watched Kamala Harris babble with Oprah. If you want to get Kamala at her worst, have her sit with Oprah so they can emotionally psychobabble nonsense endlessly. That's ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.